Hello and welcome to Tête-à-Tête, France 24's flagship interview show. Our guest today is Elliott Abrams. He served as special envoy for Iran and Venezuela during the first Trump administration. He previously served in several Republican administrations, and he's currently a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations in Washington, D.C., where he joins us from. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to do it.
Mr. Abrams, Donald Trump was elected on the promise not to fight wars and especially not to engage in far-flung regime change operation. 1 year later, he has jailed the leader of Venezuela, the supreme leader of Iran was killed, and the Cuban leader has been warned to step aside. What happened to Donald Trump?
I think it's a combination of things. He used force successfully once at the very end of his first term, killing Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Quds Force. That worked. He then did Operation Midnight Hammer against the Iranian nuclear sites in June 2025. That worked. Venezuela was a one-day operation that also worked. So I think, what is the saying, l'appétit vient en mangeant? The use of force has seemed to work for him, and I think that encourages him. Secondly, I think he knows that time is running out. This is his last term. 1 year of it is already gone. So anything that needs, in his view, to be done needs to be begun at any rate now.
Well, during the first administration, when you were in the loop, if I may use the expression, in charge of both Venezuela and Iran, were there discussions of such military interventions? And if so, why didn't it happen then?
There were some discussions, but not very serious ones. I think one of the reasons was a change in personnel. That is, the president in the first term came in, I don't think he even expected to be president, and came in with a kind of more professional administration of generals, had a whole bunch of generals, and Republican staffers. In the second term, he has his own team. So in the first term, for example, the heads of the Defense Department, and particularly of CIA, were opposed to this kind of activity in Venezuela. Very much so. This time, that has been very, very different. He's had full cooperation and support. His CIA director is a former Republican member of Congress. So the team has changed. I think also that one should remember, Trump is not an ideologue. That is the last thing he is. A number of people who support him, who work for him, are. But he is someone who, looks around for opportunities, and if he thinks he sees one, he'll take it.
Well, speaking of opportunities, do you support the decision to go to war with Iran and the way it is conducted?
Yes, I do.
Why?
I think it's clear from the damage that Iran is doing to all of its neighbors. What a dangerous regime this was. It was building a nuclear weapon, otherwise it would not have enriched uranium to 60%. It was building a vast missile and drone program, all of which is really too dangerous to accept on the part of the United States. A nuclear Iran should be unimaginable for all of us. 5 presidents in a row said we will never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Trump is the first person who's really acting on that.
But does he know where he's going? I mean, do you effectively do regime change through airstrikes and decapitating the leadership, as seems to be the case?
Well, I think we have no ability to predict regime change. We didn't predict the fall of the Soviet Union or of Hosni Mubarak or of Ben Ali in Tunisia. What we do know is that we are going to leave a much, much weaker Iran, weaker government, weaker military, weaker Revolutionary Guard. Those, I would say, are the concrete war aims: destroy both their conventional and their nuclear programs. I would say if people are going to conclude, yes, but the regime may survive, let's not judge this exclusively by March 2026. If the regime collapses in 2 years or 3, I think we will all look back and say, the turning point was clearly the weakening of the regime in 2026.
But there's also the risk that the regime might become angry, hardened, and might decide to use the very weapons you think shouldn't be used by such a regime.
Well, it will have many, many fewer such weapons to begin with. And it is much, much further away from having a nuclear weapon. So in that sense, we will, at the end of this war, have a Middle East in which the threat from Iran is greatly diminished.
Well, the Trump administration claims that it has been surprised by Iran's response, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, targeting of regional infrastructure. Really? I mean, how can you be surprised? I mean, you've been in many governments. This is probably a scenario that you must have read or seen many times before.
Absolutely. I don't know what the reason was for saying we were surprised, but the notion that the Strait of Hormuz would be closed was obvious and has been studied particularly by the Defense Department for decades.
There are voices in Republican circles complaining that this is a war fought on Israel's behalf, that Benjamin Netanyahu tricked Donald Trump into it. The administration's top counterterrorism official, Joe Kent, just resigned, arguing in a letter that Iran posed no imminent threat, but also that the administration, and I quote him, started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. What is your reaction?
Well, first, it's worth saying that such people have no support among Republican voters or Trump supporters. There have been opinion polls after opinion polls showing not only that Trump voters continue to support this war at the rate of about 85 to 90%, but those who self-describe as MAGA supporters are even higher in their support, getting into the 90s. So yes, there are such voices, but they do not represent the people that Trump cares most about, his base. As for Mr. Kent, his letter of resignation demonstrated why such people should never be permitted to hold government jobs. Not just the anger and viciousness in it, but the bigotry in it, the anti-Semitism in it. You know, he blamed Israel for the death of his wife, who was killed in Syria in the American fighting against ISIS, the Islamic State. So this is a conspiracy theorist. And really one should ask, I think, the fundamental question: how does a guy like this ever get a government job?
Right, but there's still questioning whether Israel's goals are the same. Israel seems intent on wiping out the regime. Do you think Trump is on the same page, or that there could be differences, and that if he sees the price of oil going through the roof, negative polls for the upcoming midterm election, he could decide to pull the plug and say, let's stop it, even before the regime falls?
Well, I think he will. I mean, I think the chances that the regime falls now, meaning, let's say, in March, are present, but they're small. And I think the president will, in another week or two, I would say by the end of March, end the war. And when he makes that decision, the Israelis will go along. This is the foolishness of this idea that Donald Trump, who is a very headstrong individual, can be led around by the Israelis or anybody else. We have a common interest with the Israelis in destroying the military and nuclear capability of Iran. We also have a common interest in seeing the regime fall. But the president will make an independent decision based in part on economics as to when it is time to bring this to an end. And when he does, it will come to an end unless, of course, the Iranians make the mistake of wanting to continue fighting. If they do that, then Trump, of course, will continue.
Including with ground troops?
I don't think so. I can see him using ground troops to take Kharg Island, which would be a discrete action. I think that's the reason for sending the Marine Amphibious Force to the Gulf area. I cannot see him using troops in Iran. The one time that was tried by President Carter, it did not end well. And I think that's a bridge too far for President Trump. He's broken a lot of his old rules already about how long an action can go, because all the previous uses of military power were really one day. But I don't think he'll break this rule.
Elliott Abrams, thank you very much for being our guest here on Tête à Tête, and thank you all for watching this show here on France 24.